This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
It's time to say goodbye to hold music and say hello to fast customer support with Service Cloud. With trusted AI and data working together, you can skip long wait times and deliver efficient, personalized service right away, all while keeping support costs low and more customers happy. Reimagine your customer support with the #1 AI CRM for service. Learn what's possible at salesforce.com/products/service.
This episode is brought to you by Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business. Want to advance your career or switch fields? An MBA from Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business can help. Earn your degree from a top-ranked business school with a thought-provoking curriculum, one-on-one leadership coaching, support from experienced career counselors, and full-time, online hybrid, and accelerated MBA formats. Join the intelligent future. Visit cmu.edu/Tepper to learn more.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance, deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale, and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
Level up your listening with Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra earbuds and headphones with immersive sound and world-class noise cancellation for a not-so-silent night. Visit Bose.com/Spotify to shop sound that's more than a present.
Between the kids being home and hosting, everything in our house gets used up in summer. With Instacart, I can save money by stocking up on all my favorite summer brands. I save time by getting everything delivered in as fast as an hour. And I save myself a sink full of dirty dishes by stocking up on paper plates for the annual summer cookout. Save more on summer essentials. Spend more time enjoying summer. Add summer to cart. Download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with David Garcia about virtual onboarding, culture building, and the challenges of remote work environments. David Garcia, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. Really glad to be here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm super excited for this conversation. We're going to be talking about all things related to remote work and the opportunities, but also really the challenges of that. And among the challenges, there's lots of things we can talk about, but we're going to focus in on things like virtual onboarding, culture building, and other related things, because there's many of these components that when we're together in person, They can kind of just happen. Sometimes they happen organically. And when you're working virtually or in a remote kind of an environment, or even a hybrid environment, sometimes these things can be a little bit more challenging. So we're going to try to unpack that and better understand what we might be able to do if that's how we're running our workplace. If we have remote workers, if we have a hybrid environment, what do we need to do to make sure we have successful onboarding practices, that we really can develop, maintain, and sustain a healthy, dynamic workplace culture, just so we can have a thriving team. As we get started, I wanted to share David's bio with everybody. David Garcia is the CEO of Scout Logic, a pre-employment background check company. He is an experienced data industry executive with more than 25 years of proven success in securing and increasing revenue from new and incumbent customers while delivering superior client satisfaction. David possesses strong business acumen and has applied a wide range of client development strategies to establish market presence and increase revenue. David previously held senior sales and marketing roles with First Advantage, IRI, and GSI US. David holds an AB in political science from the University of Michigan. So wonderful. Anything else about yourself that you would like to share with listeners by way of your background before we dive on in?
'Tis the season to shine with H&M. Discover the holiday collection and find fashionable pieces for your wardrobe or for under the tree. Get inspired and dazzle with this year's glam. From tuxedo styles, bow detailed pieces, impressive prints, and more. From unforgettable looks to unforgettable gifts. With fashion finds to home decor, find it all at H&M. Treat your loved ones and yourself this season. Shop in-store or at hm.com.
I'm a mediocre tennis player, John, but I think after that long list, I think you've got it all.
Yes, I share my mediocrity in tennis. I'm the same. I'm mediocre in all sports, yet I still like to play them.
Absolutely.
Well, very good. Very good. So tell us a little bit more about what you've experienced over this last couple of years, because as we talk about remote work, online, even hybrid work, this is something that existed pre-pandemic, clearly. And there are some organizations that were completely remote prior to the pandemic, but most companies hadn't really gone there and they had to really grapple with it, and so now we're 2 years in to this thing where we've had this grand experiment. What has been your experience in your company? And then we can start to dive on into like what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, and some of the challenges.
Terrific. So, obviously everyone got forced into remote work for the most part with the start of the pandemic. But Scout Logic, we were founded in 2017, and we actually had initially envisioned like having kind of the classic, like cool office environment, ping pong tables, the beanbag chairs. People are going to want to hang out and work there all day. And what we learned really quickly was that for our business, like so many, people is the differentiator. And if you limit sourcing talent to the 10, 20, 30 mile radius from that office, you're missing out on potentially great people for your company. So when we started scaling up in mid to the end of 2017, we were able to kind of cobble together what a remote work environment would look like and started sourcing talent from all over the United States and eventually globally to work on Scout Logic. And that has been an absolute game changer for us, not only in terms of the great experience our clients get because we've got great people, but when you heard people talk about, talent shortages, because of that viewpoint and that wide aperture we take, we've been able to consistently find great people to work with Scout Logic to deliver for our clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you went there before everyone was forced to go there.
Sometimes you get lucky, John.
And that's wonderful though, because that means you did kind of figure out some of this before everyone else kind of had to figure out how to turn on a dime, right? Yep. And go from physical office space to virtual workforce almost overnight. Now, clearly there are challenges with this, but you just highlighted perhaps one of the biggest advantages. And that is you break down these artificial geographical barriers to talent. and that's the way the world has worked for forever. Like if you want people to work for your company, for most companies, 99% of people worked where they lived, right? And there's benefits to that. And we're going to talk about some of those benefits and some of the related challenges to not having that. But when you're really struggling to get good people, especially technology, STEM related people with all these skills, that's a challenging thing. And if you're not lucky enough to be in a big metropolitan area, you could really be hurting. And even when you're in a metropolitan area, you're competing with all the other companies for the same talent.
Absolutely.
So now you break down those artificial geographical barriers, you open yourself up to hiring anyone with the skill set, with the talent that you need, and boom, you're good to go, right? And so it seems like a no-brainer. Yet, even though we're 2 years into this experiment, and in most organizations, I think have largely figured out how to do it at least semi-effectively. Many companies, many leaders are really, really pushing hard to move back to the office, perhaps in a hybrid model, but largely an in-person model, which means the geographical barriers are going to go back up for those organizations. And I have to admit, that one alone, especially amidst the Great Resignation and everything, that one alone befuddles me. I don't understand how leaders think they're going to be able to get away with that.
It does for me as well. And I sit on the boards of a few companies, and we have a lot of discussions about what an in-office experience should look like. Those companies are more progressive, and they view it as an opportunity for collaboration. It doesn't need to be like 100%. There can be flexibility. But then when you see some in the press, like, we will all be back wearing ties within 90 days, to me, that's trust. That is, the management of that company does not trust their employees to deliver, like they probably have been since this pandemic started. And it's no wonder so many employees are leaving, and we're experiencing this Great Resignation.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the other big benefits of remote work. Not only do you break down the artificial geographical barriers, but now you provide the flexibility for people, so they don't have to have these big, long, nasty commutes. If you're working in Silicon Valley, and you can't afford to live there, so you're commuting 2 hours each way, and I mean, that's crazy. And so you have, I was talking to a guy recently who moved to Lake Tahoe. He works downtown San Francisco, and now he moved to Tahoe because he's just able to do it remotely, and the quality of his life has gone skyrocketed, right? And now companies are saying, nope, you got to come back. You got to commute 3-4 hours a day, and it's not going to work.
No, and it's one of the silver linings of the pandemic, I think, for many companies. Our engagement scores, when we use Culture Amp, they're like 96, which is off the charts, right? Our retention is almost 100%, which is very rare these days. Much of it is due to the culture we like to foster at Scout Logic, but I think much of it is the fact that we've been supportive of a remote work environment. I do a one-on-one check-in with everyone in our company at least twice a year. And a consistent theme from all our folks is, hey, taking the 2-hour commute away means, I still work really hard, David. I'm like, of course, but I get 2 hours to do what I love with who I love, right? And as people are happier, I think, when they get that type of time back, John.
Well, and it's also just a matter of having flexibility of when you work. Some people are really wake up at 4 a.m. and work. Other people are, kind of night owls or whatever. Or some people just want to break up their day. And they're more effective that way. Or maybe they have kids at home, and so they want to be able to go to the school play or go pick their kids up from school, help them with homework. There's really simple little things like that. When you just provide the flexibility, people eat it up.
Well, and John, it's so funny you mentioned that, because obviously we recruit salespeople as well. And whenever we're recruiting a seller who mentions that they have a family, I'm like, how often do you get to go to your kids' sports practices? And they're like, well, during, if I have to be the office, I never can go. And I'm like, well, tell you what, you're making your number, you're getting up early, you should go to every practice. You should go to every game, right? I mean, that is a benefit that spans, beats compensation all day long, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So that flexibility piece is huge for employees. The breaking down geographical barriers is huge for employers. And of course, there's just physical space costs and, those types of fixed costs that you get to eliminate when you're not having everyone come together in a physical office space. But it's not all roses either. It's challenging. to run a remote team effectively. And again, some organizations have figured it out and have done it quite well. Others have really struggled and have either gone away, or they're the ones that have struggled so much that's why they're telling everyone, you just got to come back because we don't know how to do this. So, a couple of those challenges, and there are many, but we can focus at least for now on onboarding. So you hire great people. They could be from anywhere, distributed across the world. You got to onboard them though. And then you want to build and sustain a really healthy dynamic culture, but you're not together in the same physical space. That can be challenging. So what are some of the things that you've done at ScoutLogic to try to do that effectively?
Well, we're going to break it apart for this into just like some tactical stuff that we have learned that I never thought I would care about, and then some more soft, how we build culture. On the tactical piece, like our HR leadership, they become logistics managers and shipping. So think about all the stuff like an employee typically gets on their first day of work, right? A computer, like the swag, the welcome day lunch, like all of those activities have had to move virtual. And we really needed to map out, what does our onboarding process look like physically? And now what does it look like virtually? And we have to think about, do we have enough lead time to source a computer to get it shipped to somebody's house? Do they get the welcome packet at the house? Do they have a buddy assigned? Do we have a virtual lunch assigned that day? So the logistical planning and creating a virtual onboarding experience that mimics or is hopefully better than what someone's done historically. As an HR leader and as a CEO, you really have to think about that. So that first impression that an employee gets is what you want to start to maximize engagement from the get-go.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Academy, courses, micro-credentials, and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. All HCI Academy courses, micro-credentials, and certificates are designed, developed, and delivered by award-winning and internationally renowned scholars, educators, thought leaders, executives, and practitioners. Our courses, micro-credentials, and certificates will help you make your mark on the future of work and make an immediate impact in your organizations. Check out the HCI Academy and our many course offerings and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us. Yeah, and let's not forget, like we may take it for granted, and in the past, I suppose it makes sense because people got hired, they would actually show up to work. But now that's not necessarily something you can take for granted. There's tons of stories about people just getting completely ghosted. You make an offer, the person never shows up, right? Or they show up for a day, a week, and they're like, this doesn't work for me. And so the onboarding process in many organizations, even in a face-to-face environment in the past, I think many organizations didn't fully leverage that opportunity. And it was really more of this, just kind of the checking the box, make sure, did they get their employee manual? Did they sign these documents? Did they, did they fill out their tax form? Like those sorts of things. And really was missing the boat in terms of connecting them and embedding them into the organization, right? And what you're describing now is that's part of what you have to think about remotely, how to make sure that you're doing it. Because again, if someone feels like they've been ignored, it's a talent market out there right now. People have choices, and if I'm going to a company, I'm excited, and then I show up and it seems like they're aloof, they're not prepared, they really don't seem to care enough to integrate me. That might be enough just for me to take the next offer, right? And so we need to make sure that our onboarding is really, really solid. Now, this is something I would have said to anyone 5 years ago, but right now, I would say it even more fervently because, man, the the difficulty organizations are having to attract and retain great people is as high as it's ever been. And the onboarding is just one of those low hanging fruit things that you need to do well. And if you're not doing it well, you're really in trouble.
Absolutely. And all the hard work and logistics that go into that need to be meticulously mapped out and executed upon to make sure that person has a great experience.
Yeah. And let me say, we're talking about the challenges of doing remote onboarding, and that is a challenge. Again, I'll just repeat though, most organizations in my experience were really crummy. We're really crummy at doing onboarding, even in person. So, I mean, this is something we just need to pay much more attention to. And if we're really thoughtful about it, and like you said, meticulous with the details so that people don't fall through the cracks and the important things, like if someone shows up to work and they can't do anything because they don't have the equipment or they don't have the logins or they like some of those basic things, oh my gosh, that you're going to turn people off so quickly. So
absolutely.
Well, good. So let's talk now a little bit more about culture. That, of course, also is a really challenging thing in any organizational setting. And most companies, grapple with this, whether you're in person, remote, hybrid, or whatever. Within a remote team, though, and distributed across time zones, perhaps across the world, a richness of diversity, it's a great opportunity, but it's a challenge. So what are some of the things that you've tried to do?
So we have like essentially a top down and a bottoms up approach piece. On the top up, it's all kind of the classical strategies and tactics you would use. We have defined culture statements. Every 2 weeks, we get the entire company together virtually for an hour session to not only talk about the business, but also reinforce our culture and examples of great leadership within the company from all levels, embracing that culture. And in all of our, measurements and performance evaluations, we bake in cultural values and obviously part of that onboarding organization. But where the rubber really meets the road in a remote environment are the people that employee is engaging with day in and day out. And so we assign virtual buddies to employees. We make sure everybody has a daily stand-up within our company where they're talking about cultural values and demonstrating and recognizing each other for that. You've got to make sure it's happening organically at all levels of the business if you really want it to take root. And then on the flip side of that, obviously one of the biggest destroyers of culture can be unhealthy conflict. If I can leave your listeners with one thing, it is we call it our 3 email rule at Scout Logic. If there have been 3 emails on a topic, the next communication needs to be a Zoom video call or Google Hangouts, whatever your tool is, because that's when problems start. That's when feelings get hurt. People get their ideas misconstrued. People go to bed angry at night. It's the 3 email rule and we're done. Then we get on the phone. And I get held accountable to that all the time by my people because I just want to fire off stuff when I'm stressed. And people will say, no, Dave, we got to get on a Zoom call and talk to each other.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I've never heard that articulated that way. Makes a whole lot of sense. And I know some people, I get frustrated because I love email. I think it's super efficient. And I'm probably of the same mind as you. I'm just going to fire stuff off to people and I'm going to move forward. And if they have questions, email me back. And then there's a documented trail and blah, blah, blah. Yep. Right. And I know people who they hate email. Like they want to do a call always. And I'm like, let's start with email first, and what I like about what you just said though, is it really kind of is a nice compromise for both kind of approaches, both styles. And you're absolutely right. So much can get lost so quickly in email exchanges if you're not careful. So I love that. I love that. So there's, one of the things you said in your last response was really, in my mind, just how you're embedding culture into the organization in a lot of very specific ways. You're creating mechanisms for culture, integration and sustainability. And that's what we need to think about, because so many organizations have the mission statement, the value statement. They have, they'll even put it in the onboarding process. They might even integrate it into the performance management process. It might be something that is verbally said repeatedly. And that's if you're doing that, you're probably in the top 20% of all organizations, because most organizations aren't even doing those things. But saying all the right things isn't enough either. Like you have to get past that, right? You need to really integrate it, and you have to create the mechanisms. And so the buddy approach, like you said, having the check-ins, having the opportunities for both organic and systematic culture building and sustainability is really important. Are there any other elements that you've seen that have been challenging in terms of that culture in the remote kind of an environment?
It's so interesting. We talk about this as a leadership team all the time, John, and it's really about when we get a new person in, that if they don't quite fit our model, or if they haven't gotten off to a great start, making sure that we wrap around them so they're not ostracized from people, right? When you're in a physical office, I know this sounds so kindergarten, but when you're in a physical office, it's very hard to not only hide from people, but to be invisible, even though it can still happen. Well, in a remote world, it's very easy to be invisible. And as a leadership team, we're always worried when we hear about, oh, so-and-so, I don't really know them. I don't talk to them. They've been here 3 months. I think they're doing okay. Those are massive watch outs for us. And that's when we get on our managers and their peers to make sure we're engaging with those people. So they're a great fit for us, but we're living up to our commitment to them culturally as well.
Yeah. I really like that. So again, challenges with culture, challenges with things like onboarding, but it's definitely doable. And, I really do think that these are challenges that every organization face. And so to fall back on, it's hard to do it remotely. So it's just an excuse to make sure everyone comes into the office. Now we have to be physically proximate to each other. I think that's just missing the boat. And it's failing to acknowledge the fact that this is a challenge in every organization, in any context, in any setting. So rather than just, in a sense, throw the baby out with the bathwater, the good things about, remote, flexible, hybrid approaches or whatever, rather than acknowledging that and trying to leverage those benefits, and then to address the challenges, too many organizations are just saying, let's come back to the physical workspace. Another one of those, and you mentioned it a few minutes ago, but another one of those pieces is collaboration. So some people are just of the mind, it's impossible to collaborate effectively when we're not physically together. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on how to collaborate effectively in a remote environment?
So I'll use myself as an example. My background, as you shared, is more commercial. But our business obviously has a massive operational component to how we deliver. So my chief operating officer, Carrie Schneider, is critical to our organization, really. And that's how we win in market. So I need to be in lockstep with Carrie, not just on, collaboration and innovation, but just on the day-to-day business. I haven't seen Carrie in person in 2.5 years. He lives in Cleveland. I live in Chicago. So it's not hard. But it is kind of observing all of those basic rules of, when we're talking about things more strategically, or things that can have more conflict between the two of us, it has to be over some sort of video mechanism. We have to see each other's faces in order to really make sure we can foster that. And the technology is absolutely there. Is it still fun to get together in person? Of course. As soon as we all feel comfortable, and that should be very soon, I hope, John, we're going to do that. But, our business has had triple-digit growth each year during the pandemic. You can make it work if you embrace some of those basic communication principles.
Yeah, I love it. Well, David, it's been a real pleasure. I note the time. I'm going to have to let you go here in just a couple minutes. But before we close, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Terrific. So John, thank you again for having me. Feel free, any of the listeners, to reach out to me at david.garcia@scoutlogicscreening.com. Always happy to share best practices and ideas on how to create great employee engagement. And if you ever have a background screening need as well, our mission is to make background checks easy for recruiters. Always happy to help people out. And I think just the last word I'm going to leave on remote is I'm going to go back to my 3 email rule. Make sure you're pushing everybody in your organization to get on the phone and see each other's faces, because otherwise, we get stuck behind that wall of email. And that's not healthy for anybody, even introverts like me. So thanks again, John, for having us on today.
Yeah, thank you. It's really been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what David and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership, the journey of becoming a truly remarkable leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There is no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of your problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for your individuals, teams, and organizations. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.